Growing up, I was a Nintendo kid through and through. I had the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, I had a Game Boy. Now, I did have a Game Gear growing up, and there was a Genesis in the house, but when it comes to Sega Genesis collecting, I have no idea what I'm doing. So welcome to 10 games in my Sega Genesis collection. I just got into this. I think I have like 12 or 14 Genesis games. So I have a very limited selection of games on that. And I'm going to collect for the Genesis in a certain way that we'll talk about a little bit later in this video.
Gotta go.
Hey, guy, you're the first serious gamer I've seen all morning. Check this out. Brand new 16-bit Super Nintendo with Super Mario World. Wow!
Oh, what's this one?
Oh, this is a Sonic the Hedgehog from Sega Genesis. Hey, look at these radical colors, huh?
Wow, Sonic's fast, too.
No, over here.
I like Genesis, and it costs a lot less.
Wait, kid, that game
I'll
there.
take Sonic and Genesis.
I knew that.
Sonic the Hedgehog. More action, more speed. Sega Genesis, it's a whole lot more for less.
Now, this isn't going to be like my normal 10 games in my collection videos. These ones are all going to be first impressions because I know very little about any of these. Some of them I've never played before this. So this is all going to be first impressions from me, and I'm going to try to rate these ones as we go through the Genesis collection. Now, the system I'm going to use to rate this is going to be rent, return, or buy. Rent being what I rented over and over again. Return being if I rented it, would I take it back and probably never rent it again. And buy being what I rented enough that my parents would probably just buy it for me because that's going to be cheaper. Now, number one in my Sega Genesis collection is going to be one that I do actually have some experience with. This one, I believe, was the Pac Man game that came with the Sega Genesis that my parents got my sister. It's gonna be Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Now, with Sonic games, do I like Sonic games? Yeah, I really don't mind them. Am I any good at a Sonic game? No, not at all. It's almost way too fast for me. I can't keep up. I'm kind of all over the place. I know they were going for speed. They wanted that in the game. But as a Mario kid, this kind of frustrated me growing up. Now, this one for me in gaming history is always going to hold a soft spot because this is where they introduced Tails. And Tails is always going to be my favorite character in the Sonic series. I don't know why, but I just love Tails. I think he's so cool. This is CIB with the hang tabs. So we've got the manual and we've got the game, box, hang tab. This is awesome. Really excited to have this one in my collection. This one, would it be a rent, return, or buy? So this is gonna be a buy just because it has Tails, it's a Sonic game, and I think with a lot of practice, I could maybe get so I could handle a Sonic game, but it's definitely one I would have to buy to have with me. And the fact that this is the not for resale one was the pack-in on something for sure based on that. This one's always going to be one of the ones that holds a soft spot in my heart. Again, I wasn't a Genesis kid, but I think this one is super cool. Number two in my Sega Genesis collection is gonna be Aladdin. This one's cool because they did use Disney artists for the graphics in this. I think that's really cool. Now, I did have the Game Gear version of this growing up. Game Gear might be something eventually I would look at collecting. I know the Game Gears are notorious for you having to redo all the caps on that system. I'm sure I could find one that was redone. I could probably figure out how to do it myself. But for now, having this Aladdin in my collection, I think that's good enough for me. This is a really cool looking game. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed playing this one. There's some really cool features in it, like when you jump on the camel's backs and they're laying down, they'll like spit and they'll take out enemies for you. I thought that was really cool. The genies in this one, this is super fun. And I like that it seems like I can just keep continuing. I didn't get a full game over in this when I was playing it. And honestly, this one's gonna be a buy because just based on the graphics alone, this is one that I know because I own it. I'm definitely gonna play more of it. And I think eventually I'll figure it out and I'll have a lot of fun with this one. Now, number 3 in my Sega Genesis collection is gonna be Columns. This is like a Tetris style one with these jewels that you're trying to kind of line up. Right at the start, I was really wishing I could make it so they were like horizontal while they're running down. They just kind of run down vertically on me, which kind of makes it a lot more challenging. And honestly, once I was okay with that, kind of added to the fun. I do like that I can do like diagonal lines on it. That was cool. Now on easy mode, it was kind of telling me this would be a good spot for some of these as they were coming down, which was helpful. Now, did I get my butt kicked on easy? You know I did. But would I play it again? Absolutely. This would definitely be a rent for me. I would get this one a few times. I think it's enjoyable. I like that Tetris style of games normally. This one's definitely a fun one. I would like to try playing this on 2 players. I think that could be fun. But for now, I'm actually glad I have this one in my collection. I would definitely rent this one a few times. Now, it's kind of common knowledge that Pitfall on the Nintendo kind of isn't all that good. Now, I haven't played the Super Nintendo version of this, but number 4 in my Genesis collection is gonna be Pitfall, the Mayan Adventure. This one's got a really cool art style to it. I enjoyed that right away when I put it in. I like that I could just like hold start and I would rotate through some weapons. I didn't like that I was out of boomerangs instantly. And I mean, a game where I can climb on vines and adventure around is always gonna be one that I'm excited to play. Now, I did get stuck in the first level. Kind of got hung up. I didn't really know where I was going at one point, but I'm absolutely excited to put this back in the system and try it again. I know I can get past that point. I just have to figure it out. And I think that would make me rent it. I would definitely rent this one a few times, hopefully figure that out, and then, you know what? It might even turn into a buy eventually. For now, I would definitely put it in the rent category. Pitfall games are always going to be cool to me because they're Pitfall games. I don't know why they have that stigma. Probably because I loved Indiana Jones growing up, and this kind of felt like a video game version of that. I think that's why I have a soft spot for this one.
Introducing Pitfall, the jungle adventure video game. Just a reminder, not everyone wins. Pitfall, the Mayan Adventure, for Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo Entertainment Systems from Activision.
Now, number 5 in my Sega Genesis collection is definitely one that guided my method that I'm going to be collecting Genesis with. Number 5 in my Genesis collection is going to be Miss Pac Man. Now, this is always going to be special to me because this was gifted to me by my buddy Seth at Siege. Now, when Seth found this one for me, he made sure it had the hang tab. He made sure it was CIB, so it's all set up in here. They swapped the box around to make sure it had a hang tab for me. And that kind of sealed the deal on how I'm gonna collect these. My Genesis collection going forward, for everything, you might have noticed on all the ones that I was showing you already, they're all CIB with the hang tab. That's how I'm gonna collect them. I'm gonna hand pick Genesis games that are ones that I want to have in my collection for numerous reasons. One that I've been told is a good game, one that I've seen and thought was going to be a good game, stuff like that. And again, these are all going to be first impressions for me. Now, this is Miss Pac Man. It's just Miss Pac Man. It's really cool that I can play multiplayer in it. You can play 2 players at the same time, which is super cool, especially on the Genesis. I'm excited to do that. But really, I suck at Pac Man games. I get chased pretty easily and then I just get eaten. I find the controls on this to be a little bit difficult. Miss Pac Man doesn't always go where I tell her to go, it seems, and then I crash into one of the ghosts. But I'm so glad Seth got this for me. I'm so glad I have this in my Genesis collection. This, I would say, would probably be a rent. I'd probably rent this one a few times if it was out there, just so I could play it with friends, just so we could try to figure it out. But I'm so glad I have this, and I'm really glad this one's gonna kind of navigate how I'm gonna collect for the Genesis. Number 6 in my Sega Genesis collection is gonna be X-Men. Now, I loved X-Men as a kid. I loved the toys, I loved the cartoon series in the 90s.
Extraordinary, exceptional X-Men. Wolverine's got a tiger twist, stripes, and spring-out claws. The Iceman comes on his ice board with color change icicles. Sabretooth's equipped with wounds that heal easily, an extra slashing claw, and glow-in-the-dark eyes and mouth. Here's Forge with his quick-draw gun action. Look out. And Mr. Sinister with his light-up chest. These aren't ordinary men. They're X-Men. X-Men figures, each sold separately from Toy Biz.
And I always want to love an X-Man game. Every time I put one in the system, any system, I always want to be in love with it. I just want it to be good because it's the X-Men. Now this one had a lot of promise right at the start. I did, again, get stuck in the first level. Seems to be a theme for Genesis games for me. I really like that I could swap through characters kind of on the fly. I guess I should have read the manual because obviously they have manuals in these ones. These are all CIB. I'm sure it would have told me that some of the characters are just like attacks. Iceman leaves like this ice platform that your character can run on, but you can't just be Iceman. Now I got fully stopped in level 1 on this. I got to a point that I spent like 15 minutes trying to figure out how do I get past this point. I come up against a wall and I don't really know what I'm doing there. It's kind of frustrating that I feel like I just want to look it up so I can see how I could do it, but at the same time I don't, because I wouldn't have had that option as a kid. And as a kid playing this, would I have wanted to continue playing it? I don't know. I'm sure if I had it for a weekend, if I'd rented it and had it for a weekend, I might make it past that. I might figure it out, but I also might have just swapped to a different game that I'd rented for that weekend, which kind of sadly for me makes this a return. I honestly don't know if this is one I would rent a whole bunch of times, just because I know I'm stuck there. Without like a bit of a walkthrough or kind of maybe randomly figuring it out, I might have been a little lost on this and not really wanted to rent it. If you know anything more about this, let me know in the comments. That way it'll be more like playground chat. I was at the playground and you told me, oh, you got to do this when you get stuck at that wall. Or maybe I just don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I'm so lost in level 1 on this one that it's easy and I just can't figure it out. Now, number 7 in my Sega Genesis collection is gonna be Mighty Max. I loved Mighty Max as a kid. I had a bunch of the Doom heads to the point that when I started toy collecting, I collected all the Doom head versions, that Polly Pocket looking style one. There was like the skull, there was a dragon, there was a scorpion. Like I had those ones and a little wolf guy, like a werewolf guy, saber-tooth cat looking guy, I guess. I had those growing up. So when I started toy collecting, I collected all the Doom heads, all complete, all with their little tiny figures. So when I saw this, I was like, I need to play this. This is gonna be awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, level 1 in this one, another level 1 moment for me. I know you're in space. I get that I'm in space, but I'm kind of all over the place. The jumping physics that they've got in level 1 on this, maybe level 2 is different. I can't get through level 1 because I just feel like I'm all over the place. I feel like I'm one of those little rubber bouncy balls you get out of like the quarter machine. You bounce it once and it just takes off and it goes all over the room wherever it wants. That's kind of what I feel like when I'm jumping in this one. Platforms that I think should be platforms aren't platforms, and platforms that I don't need to be platforms, I'm jumping through and landing on. Like, I don't want to go all that high. Now I got to go all the way back around and try to slowly jump on that. But he jumped so high in that first level that I don't know. I really wanted this to be good. I wanted this Mighty Max game to be one that I would have bought. But truth be told, this would probably be a return. I think I'd probably try to find something else to play on the Genesis if I was renting games that day.
Imagine a hat that can take you anywhere. Mighty Max.
Weekdays at 7 on TV 50.
So number 8 in my Sega Genesis collection is a D&D game. It's going to be Warriors of the Eternal Sun. You're probably asking yourself, why would I get a D&D game if I was hand-picking the games that I want to have in my Sega collection? Well, that's based on this artwork. This artwork is so amazing. I remember seeing this exact artwork in the back of comic books all the time growing up. This artwork is really what drove me to loving fantasy movies and books. I don't know why. This artwork just, it feels like it's telling a story. There's so much to it that I want to know more about the art in this one. Now the game for me is kind of meh. It's just kind of a Dungeons and Dragons game. This is like a RPG style one, like a turn-based RPG style one. I feel like I'm adventuring around. I just used the default party, and the first time I tested this with the default party, they seemed to do okay. They were killing the monsters, and I didn't feel like I was just getting my butt kicked right away. Now this time when I played it, used the default characters it gave me. I think it's just like a random set of characters. There's some snakes. They kicked my butt right away. Now, maybe I need to dig in further on this. The book on this is crazy thick. Like, look at that bad boy right there. So there's probably a lot in here that it's gonna tell me. It's probably gonna tell me what to do. I feel like I gotta do a lot of reading on this one though. And maybe if I make my own party, make it kind of what I want it to be, maybe I could figure this out and maybe enjoy it. Now, I would rent this one based strictly off the cover art. This is one that if I had a Genesis and I was in a rental store, I would have definitely picked this one up. But I feel like I would have just got frustrated with it and returned it. I don't feel like the game, for me, that initial impression, I don't feel like the game is what the artwork shows it to be. So I would probably return this one and probably not rent it again. Now, number 9 in my collection is one I got when I was out with Manny. We were at Retro Games Plus in Huntington Beach, and he pulled this one off the shelf and showed it to me. And based on the artwork, right away, I was like, I need to have that one in my collection. So when I picked it up off the shelf after talking to Manny about it, I realized that it was titled Mick and Mack as the Global Gladiators. And right away, I was like, Mick and Mack, isn't that Mick Kids from the Nintendo? And turns out it is. This is like a spiritual successor to Mick Kids on the Nintendo. And if you've watched any of these videos, you know that Mick Kids has an awesome soundtrack. It is so good. So I was hoping that this one's soundtrack would be awesome too. And I tell you what, I was not disappointed. That intro music for this is awesome.
Are you ready? Yeah. Cool. Are you ready? Awesome. Yeah. Ouch.
The in-game music seems good. I've only played like a level of it, but this game felt easy. It was fun to play. I enjoyed it. Just the cover art on that one is amazing. I'm so glad I have this in my collection. I would have rented this based on that cover art. Same as that D&D game. This one's cover art would have got me to rent it. And it's definitely one that I would have rented enough. My parents would have just bought it for me. So this is gonna be a buy. I would definitely have got this one back in the day. I think it's fun. My initial impressions on it, a lot of fun. I love the music already, and I can't wait to play more of this one. Now, if you've watched my video on my SoCal haul, you'll know I got Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo. I got Jurassic Park 1 and 2. For some reason, I love Jurassic Park 1 on the Super Nintendo, just Jurassic Park on that. I think that is so cool. I had the toys as a kid, and the Alan Grant action figure looks exactly like the top-down version on the Super Nintendo, so I love that one.
Jurassic Park! The dinosaurs are on a rampage, and only the JP team is tough enough to stop them. Grant fires his net launcher. Ellie launches her grappling hook. Muldoon fires a tranquilizer, each sold separately. It's happening, but only at Jurassic Park.
So when I saw Jurassic Park on the Genesis, I had to pick it up. So Jurassic Park on the Genesis is number 10 in my Sega Genesis collection. And this one's a lot like the second one on the Super Nintendo. I love Jurassic Park. Some of my favorite movies are the first 3 Jurassic Park movies. So I'll always have a soft spot for a Jurassic Park game. Now, this is like a side-scrolling platformer one. I do like that I can jump up and grab on the ledges and climb up. I started out with like a dart gun, which was great until the dinosaurs woke woke up and just knocked me off a cliff to my doom. This is a tough one. I died a lot testing this one. Another one where I didn't make it through the first level on my first go. So my first impressions on this one is that it is hard, but it's not hard enough that I wouldn't rent it again. I feel like once I figured this one out, it might be one that I think is cool. I love the graphics on this one. The Genesis has such good graphics, let's be honest. So this one's definitely a rent, but it feels like it might be one that after renting it a few times, it might turn into one of those ones that I rent so much, I'll just buy it anyways. So that's 10 games in my Sega Genesis collection. Now I did rate these ones, and if you disagree with my rating, let me know in the comments below. Let me know why, and then I will 100% revisit these on the next 10 games in my Sega Genesis video. I'm interested in these, but I don't know much about them. Honestly, just the 6-button controller that I'm using on the Sega Genesis, I have no idea what button to press half the time. That's how noob I am to the Genesis. So cut me a little bit of slack there, and know that these are just first impressions from me. Just pretend this is me going into a rental store, taking a couple of them home for the weekend, and seeing how I feel about them. And hopefully you'll tune in to the next one. I think next one we're gonna actually look at some Game Boy games in my collection.